Good morning and welcome to It's a Beautiful Day in Fairfield. I'm Mark Turner, that's Claire Vaughn, and across the way, folks from SSM Hospice. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it and looking forward to learning.
Yes, definitely. Whenever you reached out, you said you wanted to kind of shine a light on, this is really loud in my
It is
ear.
in mine too.
Wanted to kind of shine a light on hospice just because a lot of people ignore it or don't really, want to think about it.
There's a lot of misconceptions.
Yes.
And if you say the word hospice, people cringe, and it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
Especially because dying is something that we're all doing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, to be honest, everyone in this room is dying.
Right.
But yeah, we want to kind of enlighten everybody and give knowledge, because obviously knowledge is power.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it was something that we've been talking about, though, because really, honestly, even if you meet people on the street and they find out what you do, they cringe. And I wish it wasn't like that.
Wow.
Because hospice is very much about support,
Mm-hmm.
about somebody has a terminal illness, obviously, but there's a reason for hospice. It's not just, oh, they're dying.
Right, right. And it takes
So.
special people, like it really does. And I just want to say thank you for doing what you do. And even though you may not get the credit that you deserve or people cringe or whatever, it's so important. And I had no idea when we set this up that how important it would be to me. I just lost my grandpa last week, and I'm so thankful for the care that he got with you guys. And I just remember, sitting there and watching at one point, like him get, his medicine administered or whatever. And actually, I think this was a nurse that was there, but she was just rubbing on his arms and just calling him by name. And, it's like at that stage in your life, still making them feel human and making them feel loved. And it was just, I don't know. I was in amazement at how well, he was cared for. So I appreciate you guys.
You guys do a great job. I know from personal experience as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Just-
That's really sweet.
Just do an outstanding job, and it's such a blessing when when something like that happens with someone with a terminal illness. If you're sitting with them, you guys come and you take care of them. If they need to step out of the house for a little bit, it means a lot.
So your guys' headquarters is in Mount Vernon, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what area do you cover?
We cover 13 counties. Sorry. We cover 13 counties from our Mount Vernon office, and 3 or 4 in
We cover 9 counties. from
9
Mount Vernon.
counties in Mount Vernon.
13,
Sorry,
13.
the Glen Carbon area throws me off. And
13
I was
total.
like-
so four including
Glen Carbon.
Glen Carbon, so it's 13 total.
Yeah.
And so based in Mount Vernon, we go as far east as Edwards County, and then we go to all the way, when you count Glen Carbon office, we will go all the way to the Missouri border. And then south, we go Perry, Franklin, Hamilton, and then north, we just go Centralia, or Marion County.
Clinton, too. Goes a little bit more
Clinton.
north, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
considered that with Glen Carbon, yeah. So we cover quite a bit of territory. Amber is our case manager for Wayne County, pretty much, and Hamilton. She's
In Edwards, if we ever go that way.
Yeah, yeah, and so-
Seldomly. We probably will next week now that we've said this.
Yeah. So, but I do want to say, it is a blessing to serve our communities as well. And I tell people all the time that, and I've done a lot of different types of nursing. I've done school nursing, prison nursing, long-term care, hospital, ICU. Done just about everything except for OB, I think. And so, but this is the most intimate type of health care that somebody can be a part of. I mean, your families invited us into a time that, as Amber said, people don't want to have us there, but we form bonds with our families and our patients in a way that you don't in any other type of healthcare, not even with labor and delivery, which a lot of people feel like that's intimate, which it is for the time that you're there. But
Right.
you know, sometimes we're there. I think the longest person that we've ever had on our program was 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I actually had, when I was case managing, I actually saw a 93-year-old woman in the Centralia area, and when I introduced myself to her, and said, "You've been on our hospice program for a long time." She'd been on for 3 years, and she said, "Hospice saved my life." And I remember thinking, wow, that is contradictory to anything anyone's ever heard. But she said, I kept going to the hospital and they kept doing the same thing, but you guys came in and treated me ahead of time with a lot of the things that I saw, took me off some of the medications that my body couldn't handle anymore, and I've been here for 3 more years than they thought I was going to be. So
Oh,
It's amazing.
That is a great testimonial.
yeah.
Man. Let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Amber Dagg, registered nurse, and this is my 10th year with hospice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm Andrea Shoup. I'm the clinical social worker, and this is my 9th year with
That's
hospice.
awesome.
I'm Chris Noble. I'm just here as a testimonial.
Awesome.
Okay.
And I'm Shannon Hoball, and I am the administrative RN clinical supervisor, and I've been with hospice for 7 years and been in this role for 3.
Awesome. Very good. We have someone chiming in on the live chat. Dave Rigg is watching, and he said his wife was on hospice in their living room for 3 weeks before she died in 2017. I appreciate what they did for her. So, you know, it's just it's a true testament.
Yeah.
Everyone that has used your services or had to, you know, we all have great things to say. So, what do you think is like the biggest misconception, or what do you want the general public to know about hospice?
Hospice kills people.
I say, yeah. Hospice is Dr. Kevorkian work, and we're totally just out there to take people out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Mark
not-
them off and get them out of here. Yeah.
Hospice / morphine.
Yeah, you say the word morphine and people,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, that kills people, or fentanyl, or, you know,
Right.
something that is definitely not detrimental to the situation.
Yeah.
They freak out a little bit, and
It's
you have
just
to
because we're
kinda-
uneducated, you know,
you
we
have
don't
to come
know.
at them with the education,
Yes.
or they just don't have the knowledge.
Right.
And that's definitely what we've kind of said all along, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And people are absolutely scared to death of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that just because they're on hospice that, you know, oh, they're dying. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had people that have had no visitors after they go on hospice because their family and friends, they're scared. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, they need to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Like, they need to come in and sit with us and realize that it's not all gloom and doom.
Right.
It's putting goodness in days. I mean,
Mhm.
we may not have a lot of days, but we're going
Right.
to try to make the best of the days that we have.
Well,
So.
and I think that, and my stepdad was on hospice for 3 months, and so was my dad. I have a long history with different hospices with my family, but when my stepdad was on hospice, I was like, every family should live like their family members on hospice, because
Yeah.
and it's such a blessing in ways that people don't understand, because you have the time to do the things that you want to do, say the things that you want to say, rather than somebody has a massive heart attack or a car accident, you know.
Yes.
You have the time to have closure before that person actually passes, and the family that thought they had time to make another visit, you know, actually make a point to come in, and it really is a blessing.
Yeah.
And we tell people all the time, especially when we first go to our first visit, they are like, well, don't tell anybody, you know, don't mention the word hospice to the patient. I can guarantee you, we've all experienced it. Even Chris has probably heard this. The patient knows what's happening in their body. They know what it is, whether we say it or not. They know what it is, and so it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen with hospice or without. It's going to happen with comfort medications or without. What each family and each patient has to decide is, how do you want it to happen? And we're there to make it as smooth and comfortable as possible. And I would say probably 99% of our people pass away in their sleep. So and that's how everybody says they want to pass, right?
Mhm.
You know, everybody
Yeah.
says they want to go in their sleep. But even my mother, she just recently had a heart attack and she has some issues. And I said, okay, Mom, in 6 months, my siblings won't watch this because I said, don't tell my mom, don't tell my brothers and sister. I told you to think about this, but I told her, I said, you have said you don't want to be uncomfortable, and if they in 6 months when they redo this test, if it's worse, you need to be thinking now
Right.
about what you would want to happen at that time. Do you want to go through a surgery? Do you want to just let things happen their natural course? And because it's important to think ahead so that you're not making an emotional decision.
Right.
So, and Amber always tells people that.
I do, because especially if you talk about like do not resuscitate orders and funeral homes. I mean, that's a big deal, and it's better to make an educated decision versus an emotional one. Because at the last minute, whenever your emotions are high, it's horrible to have to decide something like that.
Yes.
I mean, not that I have anything like that in my wheelhouse at this moment, but me and my husband have had that discussion. Like, what do you want?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just a good thing to have thoughts in your brain about it, because if you
Definitely.
don't, it's going to hit you in the face one day, and it's going to be a hard decision.
Yeah.
So.
Leave your loved ones to decide it, like you said, in
Yes.
this emotional time.
And sometimes, I mean, even we've seen it way too many times where family members clash. You have that
Right.
one person in the bed that's, they can't make the decision, and nobody else can come to a decision for
Agreement.
them. It's a very hard spot to be in.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have the decision kind of made for yourself.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah.
Got some nice background noise going on in here today.
It's progress.
Road
It's the
construction.
sound of progress.
Yeah, that's right.
Sounded like a train was coming through there for a second. Oh my goodness.
But we did bring Chris here to tell
Yeah.
about her experiences, because she's had, unfortunately, her mother-in-law and her baby sister. So I don't know if you want to tell
man.
a little bit of a story about Nancy and Judy. Or Judy.
Well, with Nancy,
Joyce.
my mother-in-law, I had Shannon, so it was great. I mean,
Aw.
she is our guardian angel. She was there. I was the caretaker, and with both of them, and she just took so much off of me. She was there anytime I needed. She gave me her private phone. I know she's not supposed to do that, but she did, and I used it.
Oh.
But she was there
But you
immediately.
always called in first.
I
Let's
always
clarify
called
that.
in first. Yes, I did.
I wasn't supervisor then, so we want to clarify.
Right. Yes, I did call in
I
Do
first.
as I say, not as I do.
I always told her, I said, you can call me, but then call in
I
afterwards,
did.
and I'll be on my way while they know
Oh.
She
you're
was there. She was
That's too
just
funny.
always there. Now with my sister, I didn't choose. I chose Shannon with my mother-in-law, but with my sister, I wasn't there when they told us we needed hospice. So one of my other sisters, and it was a different hospice, and we didn't have as good a care.
Right.
It was very bad at the end because they weren't there. They left for the weekend, and
Oh
the
my
closest one was
gosh.
DuQuoin, and it was really, really, really bad, and it took a couple hours for her to get there, and it was almost too late, and it was just very traumatic. It really was
Yeah.
very traumatic and emotional. And Shannon told me if she'd have known, she'd have been there. She would have been there whether it was them or not, and I know she would have. And I wished I'd have called her.
Pulled out that private phone number.
Yeah.
I think the
and
worst.
that brings us to also, it scares people to think that they won't be going to their doctor, but in exchange for that, you do have 24-hour access. And it scares people to think they couldn't go to the hospital. But in reality, if you're a hospice patient going to the ER, you're going to be the least
Right.
important person in that waiting room, honestly. And so by the time you get loaded up, get to the ER, get registered, we can have somebody there in just as much time. More importantly, we can tell you what to do over the phone to get the comfort before we get there. We're still going to come,
Right.
but we're going to tell you what you need to do to provide the care. And our team is very good about anticipating what we think could go wrong and telling the families and preparing for that. Like when Nancy was starting to get too weak to get up, we'll go ahead and put a catheter in so that she doesn't have to, whereas her little sister was young and still aware of everything, and they wouldn't put a catheter in for her comfort and dignity, basically, you know. So we are available 24 hours a day, and we do have 24-hour access to our doctor, who Dr. Nair is our medical director, and he is the most, no offense to any of the doctors I've ever worked with before, but he's the best doctor I've ever worked with. He makes himself available whether he's in Thailand or India or Greenland. I mean, Iceland, I think is where he was at. I don't care where, Africa, he makes himself available.
Wow.
We have to allow for the time difference. And I have never had a doctor respond. He's got us so spoiled that if he doesn't answer us within 30 minutes to an hour, we're like, what's wrong with Dr. Nair?
What's happening?
So the only time he's not available is when he's on a 24-hour flight. But that is the exchange that you make. And a lot of times you won't have to go to the ER or have even symptoms like you feel like it, because our case managers see what's happening and we contact the doctor, which also goes to another myth, is that you can't be treated for things. So if Amber's out at a patient's home and she notices that they're having signs of a urinary tract infection or a upper respiratory infection, we don't do the testing. I call it like our great-grandmother's type of nursing or healthcare, where the doctor would say, I don't have a urinalysis to tell me you have a UTI, but your symptoms tell me you have a UTI, so we're going to treat it. And so because they're seeing you twice a week, typically you can be seen, the least you can be seen is once every other week, but typically we see people twice a week. And so since they're seeing you so often and they get to know you, then they know when something's off. And so it's not a stranger in the ER trying to figure out what's your norm by talking to everybody. It's somebody who sees you all the time and can see, this is not right, I think this is a problem, get it taken care of before, because we all know that people are resistant to going to the doctor and going to the ER, especially the generation that's typically on hospice. We are seeing more and more young people. And we do pediatric hospice, but as a general rule, that generation doesn't like going to the hospital. So it's anticipatory and it's more preventative than you would probably have on your own.
There's not a lot of things that we can't do in the home that the ER can do.
True.
I mean, a lot of it's symptom management at that point, so there's just not very many things that the ER is going to do for someone who's chosen comfort care that we can't do in the home. So it's just, and it's a lot less stress on the family and the patient than having to keep dragging them out to the ER all the time. So
yeah, and that's a lot of it is a convenience too, of having people come to your home. We understand that we are guests in your home, but we also, Amber and I are probably the strongest on kind of like, okay, we're going to do it your way, but we're also going to tell you if we think that we need to be doing it a better way.
I don't
I have no
believe
comment.
it. Yeah.
I had another myth that I thought of in my brain. Oh, being on hospice doesn't mean you can't leave your house.
Oh, okay.
Some people think that, I'm on hospice, now I have to stay. I can't leave. I'm like, no, that's home health.
That's
Right.
right.
But
And
this-
palliative. Palliative is the same way. They have the same restrictions as home health.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
But hospice means you can sow your wild oats, do whatever you want. We want
Yes.
people to do things.
Right.
I mean, we've sent people on trips.
Yeah, we have actually provided it we sent some, Andrew, you can tell a little bit about sending the guy to Green Bay.
Yeah, and I was going to say we liberalize a lot of restrictions that people typically have because it's about comfort, it's about quality of life and dignity. So, we always kind of have the philosophy, as long as it's safe for them to do it, we're going to encourage
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So, and of course to, There may be some things that are detrimental that we're not going to encourage, but for the most part, if a diabetic wants to have an extra piece of pie, they
Right.
usually say that makes you happy, do that. But we have a program through our foundation that tries to promote. It's similar to a Make-A-Wish kind
Right.
of program, just not on as big a scale. But we had a gentleman up in Marion County who was a lifelong Packers fan and a lifelong Cardinal fan, and one of his dreams was to go and tour the stadium in Green Bay, and so we helped his family financially make that happen. So his sisters and his brothers had a major hand in that, but we helped them to be able to do that. And then with the money that they saved by not having to pay for everything on that trip, they were able to take that extra money, and he got a tour of the stadium and everything, so he was able to add something to that before he passed. So
My
That's great.
sister had never been to the beach, and that's all she wanted was to go to the beach. So me and my other two sisters, we was taking her to the beach. They had a big fundraiser once this town found out. They had a fundraiser at Lafayette and raised money for us to take her to the beach. She passed the Sunday before we were leaving, but we took her ashes to the beach.
Oh, what a sweet story.
And Andrea is the social worker, and a lot of times, I don't know how Amber does it, but when I go in to do an admission, and I'm trying to tell them that the social worker is going to see them in the first 5 days, because all of our services are optional except for nursing, but Medicare wants social work and chaplain to see them within the first 5 days, and then they can come monthly and as needed after that. And we now have music therapy as well. We have volunteers. We do veteran to veteran pinning ceremonies. We do a legacy video where they can come in and interview the patient and ask questions, and they will make as many DVDs for the family as they want. We have pet therapy now. We have a legacy list that we put inside our admission packet of different things that you can do within the home, even whether it be making thumbprints, and it gives you ideas also of what to do with the patient rather than just sitting there watching, waiting. The activities you can do and different things. And one of our nurses came up with that because she had lost her young daughter in the hospital, and they had done some things like that, and so she incorporated that into a list for our patients. And so anyway, when I'm telling them all of the services that we have, when it comes to the social work, because a lot of times they're like, well, what do I need a social worker for? And I'm like, I can't even answer that. I said, they're wonderful. We have 3 of them, and I'm like, they're wonderful. So I'll let her tell you that when she first comes. So I'm going to say, Andrea, tell what you do.
Usually on the first visit, it's just to introduce myself, establish rapport with the family, get a little bit of social history, kind of understand who the primary caregivers are going to be, what kind of limitations they might have, which then leads into what types of resources might be available for them in the home to assist with care or to assist with just basic needs that might not be being met because people are taken off work to be, the primary caregiver, or to, come in and help with care. So financially, the situation may have changed for people in the home. So it's addressing all of those basic needs first, connecting them with all of those resources, answering questions. A lot of times that first visit is a lot of information for the family at one time. We have nursing that goes in the very next day to follow up on that, and then usually the rest of us trickle in within that next 5 days. So sometimes they have some questions that might not have been answered yet, so we always want to make sure that they have everything they need. And then usually it switches to a more supportive role after that. I mean, things are going to come up that we'll address that they might need information or resources for, but all of the social workers in our organizations are licensed clinical social workers, so we have the licensure to help provide counseling and emotional support. We assess for grief and risk for bereavement and complicated grief. if there are things in people's history that may lead us to believe that that might be, something that is going to be very difficult for them outside of the normal grief and bereavement, then we try to assess for that and connect them with resources that are going to be helpful for them. So it's usually just a what can I do to make this process as easy as possible and help people cope and adjust to the changes that are going to be happening as their loved one goes through this.
Just having someone there to talk to, or you know what I mean, just
She's my personal therapist.
yeah. Can I get your
I
personal
always
phone
call
number?
her.
Yeah.
I'm like, Andrea.
We all owe her about $85 an hour. Yeah.
And sometimes they're just social visits.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just, they don't necessarily need anything, but it's that consistent connection with families, because it's very difficult to go into a home when someone is very close to the end of their life and not know them very well. And it's just, I think it's awkward for them to have someone coming in to try to offer support that they don't really have a strong connection with. So, it's just building that relationship with them throughout the time that they're on hospice. But, we have some people in facilities that, we try to do extra little things for them that might be meaningful. We have a lady in a facility now that she's just really unhappy about being there. And she's still alert and oriented. She's still able to do most everything by herself. She's just not safe to live alone. So my mission is to always make her smile and to get her laughing. And so I've started a travel journal for her, so we talk about a different city every time I go, and then I print off information and pictures and take it and we add it to the journal. So we're, it's not necessarily that it's what most people would consider a therapeutic relationship or a therapeutic session with her or anything, but it's just something that she can look forward to that kind of takes her mind off the fact that she's living in a facility and is on hospice. So it's fun. It's fun for me too. So sometimes it is just more social and making those connections and relationships with patients and families.
And they all work together. Michelle's our other social worker that's in the Mount Vernon area. Jennifer's in Glen Carbon and does our bereavement, but Michelle has been helping her. She's taken some personal family pictures of when her parents were in Europe during military time and different things, and they work together. Our team, I think what makes us unique as far as all hospice is good. All hospice is good, and I'm not going to say that you're going to get bad care from any hospice. Right. But I will say that one of the things that makes SSM shine, in my opinion, and our team in particular, is the cohesiveness of our team. We can depend on each other. We can reach out to each other. And Andrea, she kind of downplayed and made it more professional, but me and Amber both have utilized her and encourage other people to utilize her, because Amber and I have been there longer than the majority of our team. We don't have high turnover, but we call her when we have family issues. There's been plenty of time that we've done joint visits because the family, we all know that grief brings out
the worst in us.
And the best. Yes, it brings out the worst and the best. And so if you have someone, and there always seems to be one person in the family who is not handling it as well as others, and it takes them a little bit longer. And we don't judge that, even if we have been in a similar situation, we've not been in that situation. We're not that person, we're not that family, we don't have that history, so we never judge that. I've been called a murderer, and the family was very upset, and I'm like, listen, he needs an outlet. I've had people kick chairs out of the way, and I'm like, they're angry at the situation. This is not about me. They're losing their loved one. And so there have been times that Amber and I both have done joint visits with Andrea to help have her expertise in the mental health
I'd say I've always just guessed what to say. She was educated what to say. Like, seriously. And that's what I tell our patients. I'm like, I can support you as much as I can
Right.
possibly guess,
Mhm.
but she's been educated on how to do all of that.
Exactly. And so they're all a very good asset. Michelle is a wealth. She seems to be an endless well of resources.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And she is like a pit bull. She will not let go if you have a need. If we
She's going
can't
to
meet that
find a
need,
resource for it.
Aw.
She's so good at that.
if we can't meet the need, it's because the need is not able to be met.
Yeah.
Because
She'll find a
Michelle will
way.
not quit.
Or you just can't please everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's true too. That's
Yeah.
true too.
How many
But,
people do you, I'm sorry, how
no,
many
go
people
ahead.
do you have on staff?
On staff,
Yeah, I mean-
counting our Glen Carbon office, we have 21 at this time.
I have no idea.
We have, we're at 10 nurses, 3 social workers, 3 chaplains, volunteer coordinator, music therapist. The music therapist, she used to actually teach school here,
Aw.
Janet Sinks.
Okay.
And she is something that we didn't realize how much we needed.
Yeah.
She's
But she
another
has,
one.
I mean, we understood what music meant to people.
Right.
But she's brought out people. Andrew, I can't think of the person, was it in Nashville that she brought out, and she came out of her shell and started, like, she'll have people who haven't picked up an instrument like they used to in a long time ago, she'll bring it in. She does, we just found out she has an accordion. She does polka music. If you like polka music.
I think she picks up everything and plays it.
I love that.
She can record a heartbeat. We bought her a stethoscope that will record a heartbeat, and she can put that to music. All sorts of things and she absolutely loves it. And it has really quickly become our patient's
Her
favorite
favorite.
thing
Yeah.
to do. And it's brought people out of their shell that sometimes they just sit there, especially our facility patients who, don't get a lot of interaction.
I think
Brings
our-
a smile to their face, I'm
Yes.
sure.
So you guys are hopping, you guys are moving all the time then.
We are.
I think our
A
staff
well-oiled
is
machine.
yeah, it's small enough that it's like family, and I don't say that lightly.
Right.
Because we work together, we pray together, we're always there for each other, but we are very blessed to have senior leadership that looks at our numbers and gets us the help that we need when we need it. And we are fully staffed, with the exception of a massage therapist, I believe, is our only open position. We have very little turnover within our staff. Most of the nurses and other staff members that we've had have been there a long time. So that just increases the family-like atmosphere that we have. We have good communication. We're always, the nurses cover for each other. And so, we have case management. Amber has a caseload of people that she sees most generally, but if she's off, or if it's our weekend nurse or someone else that needs to go in, it's just a smooth transition. And it's just really I don't know. I've worked with a lot of great people in my career, and I've been very blessed to have had that. But this group of people is it's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm.
To be, I just think that's a great testament for your program too, because for it to have that low turnover and to have people that are working for, at a job for a long time, that just doesn't happen anymore. We're not happy. We want to move on to the next thing. We want more money. We want,
Yeah.
So that shows a lot
Yeah.
that you have good management and people investing in you and giving you what you
You
need.
can't help but fall in love with the job, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it certainly helps to have a group of people that all have a common goal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everybody here has the same heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've worked in several places too, but every person has the same mindset. These are our family members that we're walking into these houses. This is not just a family that we know. We inject ourselves into your life. I mean, it is totally personal.
Yeah.
If we walk in your door, it's personal from that point forward. I mean,
And I think that's so important because we, just have gone through it.
we're not there to just
You
take
need
care of
someone
you. We're
that's
there
gonna,
to take care of everything.
Right.
And we grieve with you.
Right.
Also, which,
Yeah.
is, we don't often, we've been doing much better. We didn't always talk about that, but our staff, if you've had somebody that my first person who passed that I case managed, I'm like, I see her more than I see my own mother.
Right.
I see
I mean,
all
like-
my patients more than I see my own family.
Yeah.
Really.
Because if I'm in their home at least twice a week for 30 minutes to an hour, that's more than I see my mother. Now I might talk to my mom more than that,
Right,
but I
right.
don't see her. And so we form that bond with them, and then the families, which this is important too to acknowledge, is we follow our families for a year, 13 months after the patient passes. So it's not like we are just ripped out of your life, and we're making more room. We're seeing more and more the importance of that. And it used to fall just on our bereavement people, and we are now, Amber's always been good about touching base with her families, but we're telling our nurses the importance of going back, and so we will frequently have several people who will make calls or visits, not just the bereavement person. There's the official bereavement thing, but then there's also the personal follow-up, because I went to a visitation of one of my patients, and the daughter said, oh, I thought I'd never see you again, and she was sad about that, because at one point, and Amber has a testimony that she just got yesterday too, but we are there at managing the patient's symptoms. For us is the easy part of our job, but we're there for the family. And Amber, you can tell what you shared with you yesterday.
I went and visited a family yesterday, and I told them, and they had actually said this to me before, of course, the person had passed away, that they wish they would have got us sooner because of the support. And that's the biggest thing about the whole situation. It's not just we walk in and we're going to take care of symptoms and we're going to leave. We're going to support every single aspect of you. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you come at us and you say, we have this huge situation going on, we're going to be trying to help you battle that. I always tell our families, your battle is our battle. And if you're not winning, then we're not winning. We want to make the best of every situation that you have in your home.
That's good.
She's a good resource. I mean, I no offense to Michelle or anybody else, but she sees my patients.
Yeah.
I
So
cover this area.
she covers my people.
No.
She's stuck with me.
Yep.
But I do want to mention one thing before we trail off on anything else. So if you have questions about hospice, if you're thinking about, terminal illness or, whatever it is in your situation, there's always a phone number to call. You can call even our group and ask questions. And even if you're told by your physician, here's a hospice referral, and you choose our hospice. Just because you have that referral doesn't mean you have to sign up for hospice.
Right.
We have had many situations where we walk into a home and we do like a consultation.
Right.
And just give you more information and make that face-to-face connection. Because, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to have somebody coming into my home and it's going to be a duration of we have no idea how long,
Right.
I'm probably going to talk to you about it before I'm actually going to sign up with you.
Yes.
So that was one of the things I thought of when you were talking a while ago about the connection. It is 100% up to you. It's not something that you have to do.
Right.
And I hate to say this, but we've had many hospitals tell families, do not come back here. You need to be on hospice.
Yeah.
That is sad because those people still are people.
Right.
They need care.
Right.
They have a, situation that stinks or, whatever, but there's still a person in there.
Yeah.
We've had doctors say you can't have any more pain medication until you go on hospice. That's really sad. There's so many things out there, but we are going to help every single scenario, situation that you could even possibly imagine.
And just because you sign up for hospice does not mean you have to stay. We're getting ready to graduate a lady who's been on for about a year because the symptoms she came home with, she no longer has.
Wow.
It's gotten better.
And so we've graduated a few. I had a lady who was on, it's basically like a home ventilator. It's stronger than a CPAP. And she lived through COVID. She lived through taking off her home ventilator, everything, and we graduated her.
Wow.
She came back about a year later and ultimately passed on our program. But if we can't meet criteria for Medicare, it's not just about I don't want to go to the hospital anymore. You have to meet criteria, and we have turned people away.
We have
Just
guidelines
yesterday,
we
I
have to
turned somebody
follow.
away
Yeah.
because they don't meet criteria, and that's another thing. And I think the other thing that people need to understand is, okay, we're a nonprofit organization, but we still have to make money.
Right.
And our goal is not for the faster the better. We do not get paid, so to speak,
Yeah.
per death.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
it's like,
You did it. Here's your bonus.
Yeah, that
that's
should
one
be
of
on
those
the number
things,
one.
because a lot of times people don't understand that our job is not to accelerate the process.
Yeah.
First of all, we are a Catholic organization, and at this moment, it's illegal in Illinois. Hopefully, it stays that way, but there's
Yeah.
legislation for it to not be. But it goes against what our foundation believes as a
mission
company,
system, yeah.
and so we're not about that. We're not about hastening. We're not about prolonging. We are about providing comfort in whatever time we have left. And I have a new grandbaby. She's 3 months old, and my kids over the last 7 years have gotten used to my talk about death. But I'm like, listen, even she is only going one way. She's heading toward death. However many years that is, hopefully it's many, many decades, but there's only one way to go from the day that you're born. Either Jesus comes back or you pass away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
only two things that can happen in this world. So it's a fact of life that is better to be. We need to take the stigma away from talking about it. And even when I was in like I said, I've only been a hospice nurse for 7 years, but I think God was preparing me all the way back then, because when I was 25, my mother-in-law passed away from cancer at 45 years old. And even then, I was the only one that would talk to her, and it was pretty clear she wasn't going to make it. She came home thinking that she was going to beat the cancer, but she passed away a couple months after she got home from Texas, getting the best treatment in the country. And I was the only one that would talk to her about what her wishes were and what she wanted to do for people. And the earlier you talk about it, when it does seem way out there, like
Right.
Amber said, her and Kenny talk about it. My mom has had her living will and power of attorney and everything for the past 25 years at
Wow.
least, so she was younger than me
Yeah.
when she started doing it. We talk about her wishes all the time. My kids are aware, if I get a terminal diagnosis, there are certain things, and so it's so much better to take the stigma off of it and people know. And then what our goal is, and Andrea and Amber, all of our nurses, I keep saying Amber, but that's because she's right here and she's from this community.
The
but-
golden child.
yeah. Trust me, there's probably some that think that. I think some people think she's my pet, but it's just she trained me. But,
Really?
Yeah.
I did not tell her to give her phone number.
Yeah, that's true.
I called in.
But anyway, we're real good about reminding the family if the patient has already said what their wishes are. They're all real good about saying, okay, now remember, this is what they said.
Right.
So that we can honor what the patient wants. And sometimes the patient won't share that with the family, but they will with their nurse, or they will with the social worker, or the chaplain, or even the CNA. The CNAs come in. We do give baths to families that accept it, not required, but they do it, and they can do as little or as much. They can come in and just teach them how to give a bed bath, teach you how to transfer, and then never have to come back until it gets to be too much. I mean, it's just, I think all of us could probably talk for days on how much we believe in hospice. Like I said, having family, I'm practicing what I preach. We believe in that. And honestly, even when my stepdad got it, he was like, okay, he got his cancer diagnosis, like, okay, we're done. And I'm like, well, no, they want to do some things first. And he's like, why? So it's still, we'll advise people too, maybe you want to get this treatment done before you come on with us, so that you have a better experience once you are on with us. It will help us to provide comfort in the long run. So
That's something we don't typically shy away from, is having those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
So I think people kind of look to us and put that on us, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's what we're trained to do, and it's not always easy, but it's something that we're comfortable doing and used to doing. And it's a lot of times, families never have these discussions, and then we'll come in and ask some really emotional very difficult questions, and that's just part of, and there's a lot of people that will say that they appreciate that because they're just not comfortable doing it. So
Yeah.
having someone else come in
Be
and
the
get that
buffer.
information and be the buffer and kind of mediate that within the family is something that we do a lot in a lot of people's homes for them.
I always try to convey, though, just because we talk lightly about the situation doesn't mean we don't care.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. It is a huge, huge, like, absolute undertaking to take on a family. I mean, you don't just take on the patient, you take on every situation, every
Right.
problem, every concern, all the great things, all the good stuff, too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of good in it, and it's so rewarding. I don't know. I've ran into people at like the grocery store, and they immediately start crying and hugging, and it's hard to shop
Yeah.
in a small town, but it is so wonderful to get
Yeah.
that like respect and
Yeah.
honor. It's just such an honor to be a part of it.
You guys are helping
For
people
sure.
at the toughest, spot in their life, and
It's a tough job, but you guys
Yeah.
do it really well.
I always try to be the person that I would want to be
yeah, you'd
having
want
that
to have.
situation.
Mhm.
Yes, for sure.
But that's the beauty of it too. It is emotional for us too, and it can be emotionally draining. Isn't really the right word, but it can
Taxing.
be
It's
overwhelming
kinda taxing.
sometimes. And then you have something like that happen, and it just like
It's at the
resets
right moment
everything.
too.
Yes.
Whenever you're like in the pits and wallows of your day, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't handle one more thing. And then you see somebody that just puts that light right back in you, and
Yeah.
it reminds you of why you do what you do.
Yeah.
It's a serendipitous.
Always
Yeah.
happens like that.
Yeah.
So, what got you guys into this? I mean, was this something that as a little girl you're like, oh, I can't wait to grow up and be a hospice nurse, you know what I mean? Or to do hospice? Like, what made you get into this career path?
I think for me, the stars aligned, and
Just
I had
worked
a
out.
friend that was working PRN hospice,
Mhm.
and we actually had vacations scheduled separate with our husbands, and both their vacations fell through. So her and I had a holiday road trip last minute planned, and in the car she's like, "Are you still working?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Oh," and I mean, you're getting burned out.
Right.
And we're having a discussion, and she was like, "You really should apply for this hospice job. It's full time.
Mhm.
You'll be great at it."
Mhm.
And I said, "Absolutely not. I cannot do that every day." She said, "You do that every day.
Yeah.
Working in long-term care, And
Yeah.
I'm like, "No." And then I
Yeah.
went and met Lisa Austin, who in Wayne City.
Yeah.
She was the manager at the time. And I think I sat there in her office for 3 hours during my interview.
Wow.
And chatted about everything and anything. And
Yeah.
absolutely, it was the best decision ever.
Aw,
That
that's
was 10 years
great.
ago, August.
Wow.
So,
Lisa recruited me as well. And I kind of had a personal connection with her. My mother was a nurse, and she worked in home care for many years and had worked with Lisa, so I had known her. And when the social worker at the time was getting ready to retire, she called and she said, "I know you're pretty happy where you are, but would you ever consider this position?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, I don't know if I can. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that." And I live in Mount Vernon and was driving to Fairfield every day. So even though our territory is big, it was a nice change just having my home base be local. My
Right.
kids were getting ready to be in school. So the flexibility of the job was appealing, and so I accepted that position, and I can't see myself doing anything
Anywhere
else.
else.
Yeah.
That's great.
I actually was working ICU house charge, and the same nurse friend came up to me and said, "Have you ever considered hospice?" And I'm like, "Nope." But again, God was preparing me in ways that I didn't realize.
Right.
In that all of a sudden, and this is the reason she did it, I think a few months before she asked me, I started having a lot of terminally ill patients. I started seeing patients that I ended up having to be the one to go in and talk to them about DNRs because I was more comfortable with it than anyone else. I got frustrated when doctors kept trying to fix things that even the patient didn't want to be fixed anymore
Oh,
because they knew
wow.
what was going on.
Yeah.
Because when the treatment's no longer working, why spend your life in treatment and
Mhm.
going back and forth to hospitals and traveling and things like that. And so when she asked me, I was like, I don't know, let me pray about that. And so I'm like, all right, because I always say I only move when God moves me.
Yeah.
Because I loved my job. I loved what I did, and I love all the doctors in Fairfield. That we have
Mhm.
really good doctors in Fairfield for this size of a town. We have a really good hospital here
Mhm.
for this size of town. I would put any of them up against any of the bigger
Yeah.
areas. And so I really, really loved it, so much so that I asked when my daughter became a nurse, I told her it was a good place to work, and instead of trying to steer her away from it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm like, you guys, I can't imagine doing anything else. This is truly, truly where my heart is.
Yeah.
And I just feel like my grandma, be 11 years ago tomorrow, was on hospice, and when she went to the hospital, she was 86. She was active the day that she had her stroke. She was playing the Wii with her great-grandkids.
Aw.
And she went into the hospital, and they started talking about feeding tubes and all this stuff. I was not in hospice yet, but my ICU supervisor at the time, I told her, I said, I see what's happening.
Mhm.
How do I get my family to understand that? And she said, she couldn't swallow. And she said, because they kept saying, you have to trust God, you have to trust God, and I'm like, okay, but God allowed this to happen
Mhm.
to the point that she can't swallow. So
Mhm.
we're trying to undo what has already been done, and we're trying to fight against her natural
Right.
death.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of times I think medicine tries to do, and that's great if it's truly going to do
Right.
something to help you,
Right.
But you have to consider age, you have to consider quality, you have to consider all of those things. And as a medical community, we try to undo a lot of things, and we only feel like we're doing well if we're healing people, but there are different types of healing,
Right.
And and God doesn't need us to perform a miracle, I mean, if you go on hospice and you graduate, then it wasn't your time, and God's
Yeah.
taking care of you,
Right.
But trying to undo a lot of things, it was really hard to get my family to understand that Grandma wouldn't have wanted this, and things like that. And so, I can't imagine doing anything else. And she got to go home and pass away in the way that she lived her life. Her family was all in the house. We were all, she used to say that her favorite thing to do was to sit in her recliner and just listen to the noise of the family.
Mhm.
And so this time she got to stay in her bed in the back room and hear the noise of her family.
Oh, I love
as
that.
we were all there.
Yeah.
Great.
That's amazing. All right, do we want to do some trivia? Do you have trivia questions? Do you want to ask some myths?
Okay. So, one of the myths, and we do hear this a lot, hospice is giving up and losing hope. People say you need to fight, And so, unlike other medical care, hospice focuses exclusively on a person's comfort and dignity during life's end. Initially, when serious illness strikes, stopping or altering its course is usually the primary hope of patients, but sometimes the reality is that no cure exists, or aggressive treatment for advanced illness is unsuccessful despite expert medical intervention. So as the treatment fails, often leaving a person debilitated by curative efforts, which we see a lot, where the treatment hurt more than it helped, symptoms continue to progress. A person's concept of hope then shifts to other priorities. At the end of life, most people hope for quality of life, comfort, and peace. They want to be near loved ones and around familiar possessions. Hospice makes these goals possible by ensuring that a person's quality of life is the top priority. Hospice provides expert pain and other symptom management overseen by a physician and nurse, as well as support from a team of professionals, including social workers, chaplains, and certified nursing assistants, as we've all testified to. And that's another thing that we see a lot too, is sometimes people don't want to die in the hospital, they want to go home. And it might be as soon as they get home, they know they're home. And even if they seem like they are unresponsive, we can't explain it, but they know what's happening.
Yeah. I just looked at the live chat, and Dave Rigg commented again. He said, I think Amber was one of his wife's nurses, She still communicates with me through Facebook, and Pat died back in 2017, so that's amazing.
They
That's
were very special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're great people for sure. But that's important, you know. The loss of a loved one doesn't end when they die. You know, that's something you mourn for the rest of your life. So, having a friend or someone that can reach out and who experienced that moment with you.
Before I had even considered this job, I had an uncle on a hospice program, not ours. And my aunt would never forget what happened because the hospice nurse complained in her home the entire time she was there. Every time she was there was a complaint from the hospice nurse.
Wow.
So whenever I considered this, and you know, what you say and how you make people feel in that time means everything.
Definitely.
It is huge. It is not something that we take lightly.
No.
I mean, I'm not ever going to come to your house and complain at you unless you ask me.
Right.
Like, what is your day? You know? But I mean, I'm not going to complain about the environment that
Right.
I'm in or the situation.
It's really cold in
even though you're
here.
freezing.
Like, yeah.
But, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it makes or breaks a whole situation. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything for us to go into a home and to make you feel like,
Yeah.
you know, you're the most important thing on the planet at that moment because you are. But we just don't take it lightly.
Yeah.
But definitely from the, you know, time that we meet you until your own demise,
Yeah.
we've made an impact on your life.
Definitely.
And it can either be good or bad. And it's totally, I find it very personal. I feel
Yeah.
very personal about it whenever you do run into people at Walmart or
Yeah.
wherever, and you realize the impact that you have made. And that means everything. So.
That's amazing.
And doctors don't have to be the ones to bring up hospice. If
Yeah.
you're done, a lot of times the doctor, we get the majority of our referrals from the hospital. The primary care physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, they need to understand that they haven't failed if a patient decides to go on hospice.
Right.
You can keep your physician if the physician agrees. We've had Dr. Mitchell patients, we've had Dr. Ballard patients, we've had Dr. Thompson patients where they kept it. Now sometimes the doctor will choose for Dr. Nair to take over because they're not comfortable with the medications that maybe we want to do, because in an adult patient, a non-adult healthy patient, it's not the same as if
Right.
somebody who is at end of life, and so a lot of times they would prefer to do
Right.
that. So if you're tired of going to the hospital and you feel like you don't want to do anything else, and the doctor has told you there's not much more than we can do, you can bring it up as well. You know, the doctor doesn't have to be the one to do it. Oftentimes the doctor will agree because they don't necessarily want to be the one
Right.
to bring it up either. And then with the medications, one thing that a lot of people believe is that you get addicted to the pain medications. And pain medication is designed to go to pain receptors. So if you're not having pain and you take pain medicine, that's when you become addicted. If you're having pain, then that medication is going to that pain, so to speak, in order to provide the comfort. And so addiction is not an issue. It's nothing that we have ever had happen on any of our patients.
Wow. Okay, so we only have like 1 minute left.
Oh my God.
I'm like,
Like really
I was
fast.
just like, forget the rest of it. I just want to
Well,
keep hearing about it.
You got the three
so.
most talkative staff members. Maybe I shouldn't have came.
No, I loved it. I feel like I learned a lot, and I think the viewers, learned a lot too.
Are there any questions that we didn't answer that
Yeah,
you
I don't
think would be
really.
helpful?
We don't have any in the live chat. Krista Montana said Dr. Nair is absolutely amazing.
She's one of our nurses.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Krista. Can you think of any questions? Actually, if people want to learn more about it, can they is there a website? Can they
We can
call?
give you a phone number.
Okay. What
We
number is
have
that?
a 24-hour number. It's 618-899-1631.
Okay.
And there are prompts on there now. Used to, it just went to a different one place and they had to figure it out. But now there are prompts, and it will ask you if you're a current patient,
Okay.
if you are wanting hospice and different things of that nature, and
Okay.
they'll get you to the right place.
Okay. Do you need a doctor to refer you? Can you
We do have
just
to have an
call and
order.
say, okay,
Yeah.
can you get a hold of my doctor?
Yeah,
or?
we do have to have an order, so
Okay.
if that's something that you want, either the hospitalist gives us an order from the hospital, or you can contact your primary care and they will, or your oncologist. A lot of times we get it from the
Okay.
oncologist, and then they'll give us an order. And then we, our goal is to, we usually reach out same day that we get the order. So if you asked for a hospice referral and you haven't been contacted by hospice, make sure that your doctor has sent it to the right
Okay.
place. Because our goal is to get to you within 24 hours, but usually we do it same day.
That's great.
We may not admit
Right.
same day. A lot of times we do, but you will hear from our office, usually same day, but within
Wow.
24 hours.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
everything you do.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you
all.
for having us.
You,
Yeah.
you
Thank you
guys,
for reaching out. I'm just so glad that we had you guys on.
you guys
because-
all go so much more than what probably is required. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can tell.
Yeah.
You
They
just
do.
go above and beyond.
They do.
Thank you. That's very kind. Well, knowledge is power, so that's
Yes.
why we wanted to come.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's our
knowledge
job
power.
is to empower the family.
And
You don't take a
educate.
loved one home to not want to do the best care you can. So
Right.
our job is to empower you to do what you have chosen to do, and that's a big undertaking for the family.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank
Thank
you
you so much.
guys.
Yeah, thank you
yes,
very
thank
much.
you for
Thank you.
being here, and thank you guys for joining us on It's a Beautiful Day in Fairfield. We will be back on Tuesday at
Dave Rigg
8:30.
is coming in.
Old Dave Rigg's gonna
Yeah.
be back, our repeat guest. We have him on about once a month. He's got so
So
many
nice.
good stories, and yes, he is a great guy. So we're looking forward to that. But everyone enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you.